PokeRamble Podcast.
They say that you've got to catch 'em all, but I haven't got a scraggy on how to do that. So my co-host will be telling me how he completed his Living Dex. Apart from that, we'll be talking Pokemon Masters, Pokemon Go, and much, much more. Welcome to episode 15 of the PokeRamble Podcast. I'm your host, Kamal, and I'm joined, as always, by the Battle Frontier Brain himself, Amit. How's it going, buddy?
I'm good. You got the pun in, which is good.
Totally, so basically while I was struggling this week is I forgot to put an intro down and think about what we're talking about this week, so I had to do it off the top of my head.
You did well. So episode 15, episode B-Drill, to those of us from around the Pokeverse. If you're in Galar, today is episode Butterfree. Shout out to you guys.
Let's just stick with episode B-Drill because it's quite topical, actually. Episode B-Drill.
All right.
But
episode B-Drill.
How's your weekend gone?
Good. Yeah. I'm psyched for this podcast. It's going to be a fun one. Yeah,
you've really remembered a lot of things. It's something that you might not have remembered, so I'm hoping you have. But we'll see. But apart from that, yeah, you ready just to get into the grand old news?
I'm always ready for the news. Let's do it.
Let's go. What's Pokemon going on? This is the section of the show where we talk about Pokemon Go, and the image you see up on screen, or if you're listening then you won't see the image, but it comes by way of leakduck.com, so give them a click. Best sort of place to find out what's going on in Pokemon Go, that place. But there's a Mega Battle Challenge going on at the moment, and Mega Beedrill is front and center of it. There's a special sort of task at the moment that you can complete to get more Beedrill candies and whatnot. And if you complete 125 million Mega Raids, not Mega Raids actually, just battles, that was Pidgeot, which was Mega Raids, but if you complete 270 million battles by the end of the event, which is going to be the 17th of September, we're going to be unlocking Mega Houndoom. So it makes sense that they're getting you ready to battle Mega Houndoom with a Beedrill, bug types, dark types, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, what's really interesting is they said that there was going to be Mega Pidgeot after 2 million Mega Raids have been completed, but there hasn't been any sort of word from Niantic on how we've done or how we're faring, and they've just been silent, which is really strange. So my friends speculated that they're taking the week off and things are running on auto at the moment.
It would be funnier if that we just failed to hit the target by so far that Niantic were like, we don't want to embarrass you guys. We're just not going to say anything.
Well, it's going to be more of an embarrassment to Niantic with how they rolled out Mega Evolutions and
that's true.
Monetizing, you needing to have all these passes to be able to battle these megas to get the candies and stuff like that. So
did you call them maggots?
Megas, sorry, I just tripped up on my words there. But yeah, the other thing with this event is that you got Shiny Ladybug and Shiny what's the other one called? Ladybug and Ledian, that's the one. So they're up in the game. I haven't been playing much, as you can probably tell. Yeah, not much else to say about this. I mean, apparently Team Go Rocket was supposed to have different Pokemon, but lo and behold, in Niantic's Infinite Wisdom, they haven't changed it, so it's the same old Pokemon as usual. So I don't know what's going over there in Niantic HQ, but
yeah, it's been a strange week, hasn't it?
Where is Pokemon Niantic? That's the new segment. But yeah, that's
we are not starting conspiracy theories on that.
No, that's all I've got for Pokemon. Pokemon Go. I mean, I have got like 190 candies for Charizard, so one more battle and I'll be able to make his Charizard X or Y, one of those two. It's gonna be X. But yeah, that's it for Pokemon Go. Have you got anything to say about this?
Isn't Y better?
Yeah, I don't understand why, but no pun intended. But there we go.
Well, because Y's got a better special stat, whereas X has got split.
It's got a better
good stats.
It's got a better attack, and yeah.
Yeah, but it's got good stats split over two, whereas Mega Y has got all of its boosts pumped into special attack. And because Go doesn't differentiate between attack and special attack, they just take the higher of the two. So if you just take the higher of the two, Y wins every time.
Which is absolute nonsense. Absolutely.
But nonsense. That's how the game works.
No, I'm not accepting it. All right. I want justice for the Mega Charizard X, okay? Because no one used it in singles. Well, no one used Y in singles. It was all about Charizard X.
I used Y in singles.
Yeah, but you were like one of 3 people, dude. So yeah, that makes sense why, but it doesn't make sense why. So I'm gonna move on, if that's okay. Because I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. Let's move on. It's the next pick called So You Want to Be a Pokemon Masters? I think the first thing we wanted to talk about is the refresh in the Champion Stadium.
So it's going to be a weekly thing, refreshing every Monday.
Yeah.
So nice to get to take on yet more of the Elite Four signature Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's a very different challenge to anything we've had in the game before, and I'm personally really enjoying it. So excited for next week's refresh. We both, I think, have beaten it this week already, so looking forward to tomorrow morning's refresh.
Yeah, and we've done the sort of medal about using every single type. So
yeah, that was a challenge.
Next week the gloves are off. We can just enjoy it properly. You know, we don't have to worry about all this sort of mix and matching with types.
I wonder either whether there's an unlock requirement for level 2, or whether like getting all 18 of that badge allows you to like level up the badge.
Or if there's a level 2. I mean,
there must be a level 2, because there's lots of references in the game to like level 1 and higher and things like that. So,
but whether or not they've created that sort of content yet is the other thing. And
oh no, that's a question.
That's a question. So, who did you use for this week's? Oh
gosh, so trying to fit in sync pairs that I would never touch. Just to get that badge where you had to use one sync pair of every type.
Tell us the boss, tell us the weakness, and tell us the team.
So we had, let's start on the left. So we had Lorelei, who was weak this time to electric type moves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was using Clement and I've forgotten the name, Heliolisk,
Mm-hmm.
Because he has the ability to reduce speed, which is really handy. Parabolic Charge, which heals itself. And it's a really good evasive tank. So as an electric type, was able to heal for good amounts of damage every turn, and was enough to kind of see me through that battle. I did manage to sneak in some other Pokemon that I just needed to get through. So that was a handy way to do it.
So which one were the other 2?
So I'm just literally pulling up the list. So okay. I definitely...
So for Lorelei then, I used Raichu because of AoE Electric. I gridded him for Inertia. So Inertia just essentially makes his Sink and Nuke. Essentially, so he's doing major damage. I used Karen to lower special attack across the board with Snarl, so that was my dark type requirement as well, ticked off. And then I used Happel and Mudsdale because I haven't got any other ground types, and she was just there as fodder essentially. So yeah, it was all about Hal and Karen for that challenge. So that was my sort of strategy.
I also used my ground type against Lorelei. I used Clay and Seismitoad again just to get more speed reduction off Bulldoze.
Mm-hmm.
And also just a reasonable tank, so that helped. And then I actually used Red and Signature Red and Charizard to finish off Lorelei as well.
Nice. So who did you go after that?
So then let's talk about Agatha. So Agatha this time weak to Ice type moves. Had Golbat in the center as one of her signature Pokemon. And this time I managed to get Valerie out of the way. Fairy types being at the moment by far and away the weakest. I guess type in the game, unless you got
useful, I think,
unless you got Jigglypuff in the event, over the summer. But for most people, the option was either Valerie or Mina. I went with Valerie purely so that she would go down as fodder. So I put her in slot 1 and just let her go down. And then Price and Dugong did the majority of the damage, being an Ice type. And I had Signisuit, Leaf, and Venusaur there to debuff and to heal.
I used Viola and Masquerain for the first time, and wow, that was an experience. She's actually incredible, which I didn't expect.
Yeah, I really want to get her grid to 2-5 or even 3-5 because you pick up first aid 4 there, which is not bad. But I think her grid's pretty strong, and I'm hoping that when I get another tech candy, I can do that.
The other pairs I used was also Summer Steven. I was really happy to be able to use him for the first time, and he was a lot of fun to use. Nice. And I used Koga as well, just because I needed the requirement of a poison type. So yeah, I managed to fit in both bug and poison during this round as well, which was really nice.
We'll skip the champion for a second, and we'll talk about Bruno. So I got my poison type out of the way here, so I used Koga and Crobat. I had Skylar and Swanna, and I had Corinna and Mega Lucario.
Oh, interesting. Talk to me about it.
So, I mean, one of the things with I had to get a fighting type in. Didn't have a lot of options, but thanks to having Skylar in the team, my defense is pretty solid. And Bruno obviously comes at you with physical attacks, being a fighting type user. So it was just handy, really, to have all the defense buffs, and then Corinna didn't really suffer for it. So just really to get damage out, nothing too special. Mega Evolve and then Power Up Punch, and then on to close combat. Koga obviously got poisoning, which was really helpful, and then Skylar was just there to really heal and tank.
That's right. What was Bruno week 2?
Bruno was week 2.
Psychic.
It wasn't. It was psychic, wasn't it? Yeah, it was psychic type. So I know some people tried to use Mewtwo, some people used Meowstic. What did you go for?
So I got my fairy out of the way in this battle. I used Mina and Gramble, and I used Charm constantly to just debuff attack.
Very smart.
So yeah, I was really happy to get the fairy out of the way. Apart from that, I used Signasuit Elisa as my tank, and I used, of course, Mewtwo to just demolish the stage. It wasn't even funny how quickly I destroyed it. So yeah, that was me and Bruno. And I think the hardest for me was the next one, which was Lance.
Oh, really interesting. So how did you get on with Lance? Weak to Steel this time.
Yeah, Lance. So
with his signature Aerodactyl.
I tried to use a different Pokemon. I tried to use Metagross, Maylene, and then I can't remember who was the third. I think it might have been Koga to get them out of the way, because Lance was actually the first battle I undertook. But essentially, I went back to Jasmine afterwards, and she did fantastically. So Jasmine was there just to tank up all the hits, raise defenses or whatnot. Maylene was there to buff up all pairs, and that worked to charm. She did really well. She's quite useful. And yeah, Metagross was there just to dish out the damage. So that's how I beat Lance. But yeah, I had to retry that a couple of times because I was experimenting with different pairs, trying to shoehorn them in just to get the requirements over and done with.
No, so I went for Professor Oak and Mew as my tank. I did a fantastic job of just hanging in there till the end. Grimsley and Lipard to steal away all the crit buffs and the attack buffs, which came in very, very handy.
Oh, I should say Jasmine has got this move where she essentially nullifies crits. I was like, what?
Yeah, Clang.
So it's crazy.
It's very, very handy. But no, I also had Wilkstrom and Aegislash, who come with Vigilance, so blocks critical hits naturally.
Yeah.
But I actually used him rather than a tank as a damage dealer. So +6 attack, +2 crit, I think he gets to, and then just Gyro Ball and Ironhead all the way.
And what for Blue, finally, who was weak to rock?
Yeah, Blue was surprisingly straightforward. So I went for Player and Torchic, Signasuit, Cynthia and Kamoho, and Serena and Delphox. So sleep, chain, and then just dish out damage. Wasn't too bad.
And I used your favorite pair in the world, Olivia, and I can rock. Yes. I used Signasuit Leaf and Venusaur, and I used Skylar and Swanna because
a very strong team to finish.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I sort of used the advantage of status conditions. That's why I brought Leaf along. So her poison was basically taking out every Pokemon left, right, and center, and I just had Olivia just constantly spamming Stone Edge, and Skylar was there just to speed up people and make sure they're healthy. But yeah, the fight was over before it even began, really. So yeah, that was another week in the Kanto Challenge in the Champion Stadium. I suspect we'll see the remaining 5 types or so next week.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. But apart from that, we have a new story, which is Family Ties, which is happening in Pokemon Masters at the moment. It's just a shame that I have to use these tokens to get to the story, but if stamina wasn't an issue, I wouldn't be complaining. But yeah, apart from that, we're playing that at the moment. We'll discuss more of it next week, but with this event, we've got 3 sync pairs that are going to be staggered. So at the moment, we've only got Lusamine, but we'll get Gladion and Lily afterwards. But I thought we'd speak about each one, starting with Lily.
So a really interesting sync grid for Lily.
So
sync partner is Clefairy.
Yeah, let's wind it down a bit. So we've got Clefairy.
And a fairy type as the sync move. As a unit, so she's a support, very, very tanky. And I imagine that most people will use her as a tank. Has got some damage dealing capability, but probably not how you want to use her. Disarming Voice, which is AoE never misses. X Accuracy All, which is the first, I think, X Accuracy All. Very, very helpful. Full Power, which can drastically buff an ally's attack and special attack, and ensures the next move is a crit.
Which is very useful, fantastic.
Very, very useful for buffing your allies. And Moonblast is your damage dealing move, 98 base power. Not a bad move set. And then a sync move, which, as I said, is a fairy type sync move. But one of its passes, which makes it much more interesting, is called Synchro Healing 1. Which restores the HP of all allied sync pairs after using a sync move.
I wonder how much it's going to be, but that's incredible.
Yeah, it's a new way to, I guess, have perpetual healing throughout longer battles, because you're not limited to MP. As long as you can keep using moves and therefore using sync moves, you can just keep healing and healing. So
I don't think this is gradual healing. I think this might just be like a chunk, like a potion healing.
Yeah, it's like potion healing.
Yeah, so that's going to be it's really, really interesting. That we've got that, and I think especially in Battle Villa, something like Battle Villa is going to really help with getting through stages without having to switch out pairs and whatnot.
Yeah, it's handy to not have to waste potion refresh or risk potion refresh and have some guaranteed healing.
And there's another passive called Group Dragon Guard, which reduces all allied sync pairs take when attacked by dragon type moves damage, reduces the damage.
I reckon a shout out to Clefairy's, I guess one of its signature abilities, Friend Guard, which protects its allies from damage. So maybe a little shout out to that.
And the last one is quite interesting, Fainting Cleanse.
Yeah, so when Clefairy faints in battle, it removes status conditions from allied sync pairs. Probably not one you're going to want to use too often, but not the worst thing to have.
Yeah, I think the only thing that Clefairy's missing is a potion. But not everyone can have a potion. I guess with
you've got an alternative source of healing though. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean it just depends on how much you want to be using that when you've got some strikers in your team.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, pretty good pair. And you said that the sync move is sync grid is pretty good. Any sort of reason why that is?
Yeah, so Lily's got access to Unfortuitous 9, which some of you may know from New sync grid, which basically debuffs any one stat at random on the enemy. And thanks to the Disarming Voice, just like Swift being 100% accurate and AoE, you can debuff every enemy for one stat every single move. So very, very handy to disarm your enemy and basically just nullify their stats very quickly off the bat. So not a bad pair to use. Certainly tanky, certainly bulky. So
I'll tell you what
interesting to see.
I'll tell you what else is really good about her sync grid. She gets access to something called Tighten Up and Toughen Up 2, which essentially gives you like a 30% chance to raise your defense and special defense when you get hit. And also, with Disarming Voice, you can actually power up and get Move Gauge. There we go, Gauge Refresh, which helps with your move gauge. So very, very good, I'd say.
Yeah, good power all around.
We'll move on to Gladion and Silvally, which is a bit whatever for me, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, probably the most interesting sync pair we've had so far. So Silvally, as you know from the games, its signature ability is that it can change types depending on the memory that it holds. So to replicate that in Pokemon Masters, Gladion comes with a trainer move called My Mind is Made Up.
Is it?
And it can change Silvally's type. So it starts as normal, and then can change both Silvally's type and its weakness to basically be the strength of whatever Pokemon it's targeting. So if you're up against a Pokemon that's weak to Fire type, Silvally becomes Fire type. And then multi-attack and its sync move also change to be Fire type. So it's a very interesting pair in that it's one that you can kind of throw in and negate some weaknesses that you maybe can't cover for otherwise. Other things include Crush Claw, which is just a standard normal type move, X Attack, which boosts attack, and then multi-attack, as I said, which changes type depending on the user's type. So a good way to always guarantee yourself a super effective strike move.
Probably helps with those very weak stages, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's stats are sort of not outstanding. It is very bulky, 264 or 264 in terms of defense and special defense, but in attack and special attack, it's not quite up there. Interestingly, just like its in-game version stats, they are equal all across the board. So it has 264 for every single stat.
Passives?
So passive, just the one, which is Backfire 2, which sharply lowers the attack and special attack of all opposing sync pairs just before the user faints. So again, not one you're probably going to want to rely on. You probably won't want Silvally to go down, but it does have access to that as a bit of a backup passive in a pinch.
Yeah, and it's sync grid.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of more of the same, boosts its damage output. Nothing that's particularly crazy. Lots of move gauge refresh, lots of training move refresh, but nothing that's too standout.
I think the most interesting about it is the mind made up sort of nodes where it gives you guaranteed crits and guaranteed gradual heals. Apart from that, like you said, it just takes advantage of it being able to use super effective moves with super effective 2 and HP advantages. So
yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Obviously, it doesn't come anywhere close to the blue and Signasu Blue and Blastoise stat line in terms of bulk, but it will be interesting to see how it stacks up against.
I think you probably want to use it as a sync nuke, really, and I guess like we said earlier, I mean, it just works as a sort of fairy type user because we often struggle when we've got those stages.
We do.
And it'll be interesting to see if it counts towards the medals in Champion Stadium. So I hope someone does it for science, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's actually a really interesting bug. I'm assuming it's being patched or has been patched now. But because Gladion changes type when he uses, or Silvally changes type when he uses his trainer move, it's actually possible to queue a sync move with another Pokemon. And then when Gladion's trainer move, My Mind's Made Up, triggers, Silvally basically in the game's code leaves the battle and gets replaced by a new Pokemon. And so it's capable it's capable to actually queue 2 sync moves back to back because the game doesn't basically the way that the sync move is grayed out for Silvally disappears when it changes and becomes a new Pokemon. So you can queue up a sync move with, say, your Charizard, and then as long as My Made Up happens before the sync move executes, you can actually queue up Silvally sync move as well. So 2 sync moves to the price of 1, which is probably, if it doesn't get patched, the only good use of Silvally.
Okay, and we've got lastly your favorite Lusamine and Pheromosa.
Yeah, fantastic design, but particularly the 6-star EX design I'm a big fan of, which is all black and purple, which is very, very cool. So for Ozma, I think a lot of people were expecting maybe a different Ultra Beast, but it's cool that Ozma's got some time to shine. A really hard hitter, but a very, very fragile Pokemon. So very, very small defense stats, peaking at just... I'm trying to work it out. Peaking at... Oh, that's Gladion. I was like, those are far too high.
Don't worry about it. It's like 500 or something it peaks at, or whatnot.
Yeah, so attack stats peaking at 550. Defense is only 109 across both defense stats. So really, really fragile, but does huge amounts of damage. Comes with the passive endurance, which means it can survive any one hit with a single HP, but unfortunately that doesn't include sync moves. Move gauge refresh 4, so any move that's used has a very good chance of refreshing the move gauge by 1. And positive reinforcements 3, so drastically raises the user's attack and special attack when it knocks out an opponent with a move. So a really good way to kind of snowball nice and quickly, and if you are getting debuffed during the battle, then a good way to restore your stats. In terms of moves, so it's got access to Bug Buzz, which is a special bug type move, Lunge, which is a physical bug type move, which lowers the target's attack, Blizzard, so AoE ice type attack, and then there, which is a trainer move, which restores a little bit of the user's HP and charges the user's move gauge by 2 if it's in a pinch, but most of the time will just raise the user's evasiveness and critical hit rate by 1 each. So, a little bit more survivability there in the trainer move. And again, a really interesting sync grid. So you can go for the damage dealing on Bug Buzz or Lunge, or a more interesting set that increases Blizzard's accuracy and gives it Hostile Environment 1 for a chance of AoE freeze, which is a horrible thing to go up against. But is absolutely something that Lusamine's got in her arsenal.
Yeah, not only that, but it's got, so like you said, move gauge refresh. It's got Power Flux 3, It's got added blizzard accuracy and damage, and obviously hostile environment one, which gives you another 20% chance to freeze. I mean, just looking at that, that's a very menacing pair. A very menacing pair. Because if you remember, one of the passives is move gauge refresh anyway, so she's got a chance of restoring 2 sort of bars after a blizzard. That is insane, dude. That is crazy. So yeah, very, 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 very strong, but fragile sync pair.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because these guys aren't PokeFair banners, whether they get added to the regular pool of 5-star pairs after this event.
It will. So I think in terms of priority, who would you pull for?
For me, probably Lucamine, just because the damage output is insane. And I can see her being a useful tech with AoE Blizzard as well. But I'd be very happy with Lily as well. I think Clefairy's got something really good with Unfortuitous 9. And we saw how useful that makes Mew, and obviously access to healing, which is one of the areas that Mew obviously lacks, is an asset as well. So not a bad sync pair at all.
Yeah, I think my advice would be Lily, and then Lucamine, and then Gladion, just because we've got so many strikers that could do a job, especially ice strikers. But yeah, no, I think Lily, just because she's a fairy type, and also can do the Mew role, and to some points better. But Mew's got his own charms as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's Mew.
Yeah, it's Mew. So yeah, no, that's my opinion for that. But if there's nothing more about Pokemon Masters, we shall move on.
Let's move forwards.
So this is the section where we've got a good old friend joining us. I hope you're ready for it, because it's about to happen now.
Please be excited for a question. Today's question comes from Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil says, now that Super Mario 3D All-Stars has been announced, what would you like from a Pokemon All-Stars collection? And now back to you at the studio.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you, Dr. Phil, for the question. So, if there was a Pokemon All-Stars game, what would you want to see?
I think the first thing I'd want to see is unlimited digital release. Just putting it out there. Shout out to the limited release for the Mario All-Stars. I mean, to be honest, what I'd really love to see in an All-Stars game is nothing from the mainstream. So lots of the spin-off titles with remasters and lots of kind of new features. So obviously top of my list, probably top of your list, is Pokemon Conquest. If that game doesn't get a sequel, it needs a remaster for sure, because that game is so much fun.
And what joins it in the collection?
Probably my favorite Pokemon title of all time, Pokepark Wii 2.
Oh God,
that will get a mention. And then probably maybe something a bit more offbeat, like I was going to say Pokemon Snap, but we're getting a Pokemon Snap remake, so that's fine. We can live without that. But maybe something like Pokemon Puzzle Challenge or something like that. That's just even more completely bizarre. I'd be up for that. There's so many Pokemon titles out there that, like, I'm sure people have just never heard of. Oh, I take it all back. The one that I want above everything else is a reboot of the Pokemon trading card game, video game from the Game Boy Color. Forget everything I just said. That's all I want.
Hang on, I want you to forget everything you just said, and I want you to bring back something that you mentioned to me on WhatsApp. What was the actual game you want from an All-Star collection?
Okay, my actual choice for an All-Star collection, just give me Sword and Shield. Like, the same game, same story, everything can be the same. Just give me all the Pokemon on day one.
No Charizard controlling borders or nothing like that.
That would be great. Just give me all the Pokemon.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. No, but in all seriousness, the Pokemon trading card game on Game Boy Color, if you haven't played it, go and play it. It's probably the most fun, like, trading card game, and I'm including stuff like Hearthstone in there. It's so much fun. You should go and play it on an emulator or something.
There's absolutely no bias in his statements. But apart from his bias in his statements, what I'd like to see from a collection is just give me Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Stadium 2, Pokemon Colosseum, and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness in one collection. Just touch them up a bit, you know.
That would be a cool collection. Interesting that you didn't include Battle Revolution.
Do you know what? There's look, I already stretched it to 4 games. I can't make it 5 games, so I'm just going to take those 4 games and just leave it there. I think
unlimited digital release.
But yeah, that's it for Please Be Excited for a Question. Thank you very much, Ben. Thank you very much, Dr. Phil. We shall move on.
Thank you. Please be excited.
To our next section. It is time for How We Caught Them All. So, this is all down to you, buddy. Talk to me about how you completed your Living Dex.
Yeah, so I thought it's been a quiet news week, so I thought we should take some time talking about my journey to literally catch them all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concept of filling out a Pokedex. You catch all the Pokemon, you got to evolve them, trade them, do whatever you have to do so that you can register a Pokemon in your Pokedex. Living Dex is taking that one step further. So rather than just catching a Pokemon, you have to have every single Pokemon in your PC simultaneously. So rather than having a Pidgey and evolving it twice into Pidgeot, in your PC, you've got to have Pidgey, Pidgeotto, and Pidgeot, which means you've got to go and catch 3 Pidgey, evolve one of them twice, and evolve one of them once. It's a lot more time consuming. And in some cases, a lot more challenging as well, because there are times where you can only get one of a Pokemon and you can't breed them. Like Type Null, which you have to evolve into Silvally, you somehow got to find yourself another Type Null. So it kind of adds another level of difficulty to completing the Pokedex. One of the really nice things about it is that you can bring that collection with you from game to game. So once you've done it in, for example, if you did it in XY, you can bring that through to Pokemon Sun and Moon, and you haven't got to catch all those Pokemon again. You've only got to get the new ones, and in theory, you're keeping your Living Dex up to date. And that same thing applies to Generation 8 and onwards. So it's really interesting, kind of reminiscing on completing the Living Dex. And I did it, I think, about 2 years ago now, in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And yeah, it was just something that I thought a lot of people should try. If you're a big fan of Pokemon, it's something a lot of people should try, because it's something that, for me, really sort of brought out some engagement with every single Pokemon. Like before, there were Pokemon that I just either had never run into or never really connected with, or just thought, it is what it is. But having to actually take the time to catch them all genuinely gave me an interaction with every single Pokemon, whether it was the screen when I caught it, whether it was, the hours spent trying to find it, whatever it was. I had
all the tears you had when you couldn't find it because there was a 1% appearance rate. Yeah. So it's something that if you're really into Pokemon and you really want to kind of take your connection with it to a new level, it's something I highly recommend, because I came away from the experience, it was frustrating at times, it really was. But every single Pokemon on this list, I now feel like I have a story behind, which I couldn't say that I had before. So talking of stories, really cool what's your story?
Yeah, so I started in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and if you bring up the next image, I can talk through the starting point of my journey. So
this feels like a presentation. If you bring up the next image, sir.
So basically, I'd already reached Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I played through the game, and I basically said, right, I'm at this point now. I want to try and get a Living Dex, and it's not as straightforward as you think, because you can't actually get every single Pokemon in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So what you can see on screen at the moment is a list of all the Pokemon that aren't available natively in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And this is a pretty short list because it just contains those that are
Where did you even find the list
available.
like this? Because this looks very handy.
This kind of stuff's been around for a long time. You can find it on Reddit. I actually derived it from Cerebi at the time.
Okay.
It's easy to find the lists. But what's the
because
next step
I
after
manually
this?
did mine. I had to write them all down, and just like, this is this Pokemon, this is that Pokemon, and stuff like that.
There were many spreadsheets involved. But the thing that's even more interesting than this is, although this is a list of the Pokemon that are definitively not available in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, some Pokemon in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are so rare that it's just not worth wasting your time trying to find them in that game. So a really good example is Bagon, which has a 1% chance of spawning. It's not worth your time finding a Bagon in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon.
I remember some people wouldn't even continue in the game till they got one because they wanted to start the game with a Bagon.
So there was a 1% chance of finding a Bagon, and then in that same battle with the Bagon is a 1% chance of it SOS spawning a Salamence. So you could actually catch a level 4 or 5 Salamence right at the beginning of the game.
Absolutely insane.
Anyone who did that clearly missed the point of that encounter. But hey, it is what it is. I'll come back to SOS battles later if you don't know what they are. But basically, I started with this list and said, right, these are the Pokemon I definitively have to go and get from another game. And then I thought, well, I'll take it one step further and I'll add in any Pokemon that are basically really difficult to catch. So anything with a less than 5% spawn rate that was much, much higher in another game, I added to my list of things to go and find. Anything that required some, really difficult concepts like going into an ultra wormhole, I tried to get elsewhere. So really what I tried to do was minimize the amount of effort and work that I needed. So this was my starting point, and then I added to this around 100 more Pokemon that were just easier to find elsewhere. So to start my journey, I began in Pokemon X and Y. So I had played Pokemon Y. I had completed the game, and first thing I did was basically went through my boxes in X and Y and Omega Ruby, which was the other game that I had from Gen 6, and basically just ticked off everything that I already had so that I wasn't catching them again. And then once I'd done that, my first job was to go through the Kalos region and catch everything that I'd missed. So I was retracing routes that I, had just skimmed through. I was catching and evolving Pokemon
sweet
that I had come across. Yeah, I forget the rollerblades. They're so good. And the bike as well that could do tricks, which is probably the coolest thing in XY.
Says a lot.
But yeah, it was, well, I'll come to my favorite thing in Omega Ruby in a minute. But it was good. It was good to go and catch lots of Pokemon. And the reason why I pulled this image up is there's also a select number of Pokemon that you can catch through a friend safari. So basically you add your friends to your game and they all have 1 or 2 or 3 random Pokemon that can spawn in a safari zone, basically. Yeah. Similar to the one in Generation 1. You can throw Pokeballs and catch them, and they have increased shiny chances, which is always nice.
You can do those 5 battles or whatever they're called as well. In these safaris with Sweet Scent or whatever, and you get a shiny from them.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool. So I had a small problem when I reached this point, which is that I realized I had no friends. So I couldn't use Friend Safari to get all the Pokemon that I needed. So again, I
that is one of the funniest sentences I've ever heard. I came across a problem in the Friend Safari. I had no friends.
Yeah, it was a real problem. It really held me back. So I had to go and I basically added to my list all of the Pokemon that were only available in Friend Safari, and I had to go and find them somewhere else. So although I managed to get the majority of Pokemon in X and Y, certainly all the ones that were native to X and Y, and I was able to trade version exclusives for version exclusives on the global trade system, which was really handy.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a bit of time, but I managed to get them all. Obviously, was catching multiples of the same Pokemon, so had to get my Goomy and my Sliggoo and my Goodra, but I got them all and I put them in the box.
Can I give a shout out to X and Y as well? Because this is the game where I first completed my Living Dex, and I love the Friend Safari because there were some Pokemon that were really hard to get, but then the Friend Safari managed to give you Pokemon like Charmeleon, for example, which was really nice when you picked Blastoise at the beginning of the game or Squirtle at the beginning of the game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, it was definitely a really handy way to get harder to find Pokemon. The thing I'm really glad actually is that a lot of those Pokemon were available on the GTS for not ridiculous offers, so I was able to farm quite a few of them from the Global Trade Center.
Yeah.
But it was tough. It was very tough. And also, if I got anything from the Global Trade Center, my rule was that I had to breed it so that the original trainer entry in my Pokedex was my character and no one else's, just to add another level of difficulty.
No, I'm pretty much the same with you when it comes to that.
So although I did in some ways kind of skip a step by getting them off the GTS, I still did the honourable thing and breeded them to get them to be my own.
Let's just say there's nothing wrong with having each Pokemon with someone else's trainer name. It's just a really, really weird thing that we do.
Yeah. It's just being, I think, really over the top pedantic.
Yeah.
In being a perfectionist. But by no means is it essential. So yeah, went through X and Y, caught everything that I could, and then went over to Omega Ruby.
And this is probably one of my favorite features in the game, dude.
Yeah, I wish that they had reintroduced this. So Dex Nav, which is something that you unlock later in the game in Omega Ruby, basically allows you to hunt for specific Pokemon in the wild. It's not so much essential in Sword and Shield now that you can physically see them in the overworld, but in Generation 6, when you couldn't see things in the overworld, it's so helpful to be able to tap on a specific Pokemon and be able to encounter it guaranteed. And it was so much easier to find Pokemon that were just more difficult to come across. So if I needed to find a Zigzagoon, and then I needed a second one to get my Linoon, I could just tap Zigzagoon after finding the first one. It would guarantee that the next Pokemon that spawned would be another Zigzagoon, and all you had to do was walk up really slowly to it so it didn't notice you, and you got yourself another Zigzagoon. So
I loved how they had shadows as well for Pokemon that you haven't encountered yet.
Yeah, they
that you
had,
could hear.
and it was a great way because you actually knew if you were missing Pokemon in that route. So it was a really good way just to very systematically work your way through every single area with wild Pokemon and just tick so many of them off the list. And this was probably where I caught, I would say, the majority of my Pokemon. So I probably caught, of the 786 that I had to catch, I probably caught 400 at least in Omega Ruby alone.
And I think during my first playthrough of Mega Ruby as well, sometimes I'd spend a little while in a route, for example, for Poochyena, because some Poochyena could have like moves that they don't normally learn through level up, like Thunderfang and whatnot. So yeah, I spent some time.
Yeah, DexNav, and it was also the way to shiny hunt in Generation 6. There were lots of incentives to use it and get familiar with it. But the other thing you might notice is this is the image for Route 101, where typically you'd only find 4 Pokemon, Poochyena, 3 Pokemon actually, Poochyena, Zigzagoon, and Wurmple. But after you unlock the National Dex, more Pokemon are added, so you can see
this is how it should have been handled in Sword and Shield, for anyone that always complains about, people complaining about wanting all the Pokemon in the game. This is how they should have handled it.
Because this is how it's been for a lot of games, where you get to the stage of the National Dex and then you can catch everything else that you were missing.
Yeah.
So
you can play the game before these new Pokemon and appreciate the new Pokemon, but give people the choice after they've completed the game to get the rest of the Pokemon that they want to.
And I do understand that, like, the Sun and Moon didn't have all the Pokemon in natively, so you couldn't catch them, but at least you could import them. So at least there was a way to use them.
Yeah.
So like I've got shinies in my Pokemon bank at the moment that I just can't transfer across to Generation 8 or Pokemon Home because they're not compatible.
Let's not even go down this route because we're gonna descend it. Yeah.
But yeah, so DexNav was an incredibly quick way to find Pokemon that you were missing and make sure that you're encountering kind of as many Pokemon as possible. And the other thing that made Generation 8 really, really helpful is it had a great way to level Pokemon up quickly. So one of the things that really sucked is that obviously if you're breeding Pokemon from multiples, you then had to level them up. And for some Pokemon, you had to get them to like level 60 or, in the case of, I think it's Hydreigon 64. So the thing that's really helpful in
not to be confused with the Nintendo 64.
This is true. Is that you can unlock Blissey Bases. So these are secret bases that other trainers set up for you, where they put in Pokemon for you to fight. And lots of very, very kind people put in level 100 Blisseys that only knew, I think, Splash.
Healing Wish.
Which was a useless move. So you could literally put in a level 1 Pokemon and you could beat the Blissey.
Wait,
guaranteed.
You didn't use the Healing Wish Blisseys?
Oh, you're right. It was Healing Wish. That was it. It was a Healing Wish Blissey.
Yeah.
So it would knock itself out, or if you fought 2 of them, the first 2 would knock themselves out, and then the last one you had to kill because Healing Wish would fail. That's how it worked.
Yeah.
So
and they
you had
wouldn't
to
kill
knock
themselves.
the last one
They would faint, quote unquote.
They would faint. I apologise. Yeah. Healing Wish Blisseys make so basically Blissey uses Healing Wish, makes itself faint, and you get all the XP for free, which is really, really helpful and a really quick way to level up because Blissey gives the highest XP of any Pokemon in the game.
Yeah.
So a really good way to level up.
XP share all as well.
Yeah. You had XP share all, which was a big benefit as well. It was, so basically Omega Ruby is where I spent most of my time just kind of getting to where I needed to get to. And then with almost a complete dex in Omega Ruby, I didn't complete the dex because there were Pokemon in Sword and Shield that I'd already caught that I wasn't going to catch again. I'd brought all my Pokemon from X and Y and Omega Ruby across to Pokemon Sun and Moon. And then the majority of the Pokemon that I had to catch were the ones that were native to Sun and Moon, some of which were only available through very difficult
Sorry, earlier
methods.
you said Sword and Shield, you meant Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon.
I meant Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, yes,
okay.
I did. My bad. So you can see on screen right now an SOS battle, which is where you start a battle against one Pokemon.
This specifically was one that annoyed me.
Yeah, and then when it gets to low health, or you actually can do it at high health as well, it calls another Pokemon to join the battle. And the reason why it's really frustrating is that you can't catch either Pokemon until you knock the other one out. So Marini, who you can see on screen, only appears via SOS battles. So not only do you have to find a Corsola, not only do you have to get it to low HP and not knock it out, it has to have I think a 20% chance of calling a Marini. Then you have to knock the Corsola out. Then you have to hope the Marini doesn't call another friend and then catch the Marini. It was a pain, which is why I wanted to do so much of my catching in Generation 6 because it didn't have this mechanic. And Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon made that slightly easier because you couldn't call unlimited allies unless you used an Adrenaline Orb, but it was still a pain to have to take out 2 Pokemon every time and deal with the faff of not knocking a Pokemon out. And that was really kind of the ending saga, was going through Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, going through the SOS battles and just trying to catch everything that I'd missed in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of got me 90% of the way there, which was really, really helpful. And then I hit a roadblock. And that roadblock was that I was missing a large number of, firstly, legendary Pokemon, but also some Pokemon from Generation 5. So very fortunately, I had a good friend who happens to be on this podcast right now, who said, "Hey, I've got a copy of." I think it was Pokemon Black 2.
I'll narrate. 7th of October, 2018. Hey, Kumail, I'm Vis's cousin Amit. Thanks for offering to help me out completing the Living Dex. And then you proceeded to send me a list of legendaries and gift Pokemon the world has never seen. It was unbelievable, dude.
Yeah, that was how we met, right? That's how we first got introduced.
Exactly.
So I needed help completing the Living
And then
Dex.
you needed some version exclusives you needed to trade for as well.
I was like, please, sir, can I just have all these freebies?
Yeah.
And then you hooked me up big time. So you gave me a whole bunch of version exclusives that I just couldn't find, duplicate legendaries that you had spares of. You were very, very helpful. But the thing that you did that was probably more helpful than anything is that you gave me your copy of Pokemon Black 2, which I started. I got, I think, nearly up to the first gym.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, you can basically re-trigger old events on the DS. So I basically managed to get a whole load of exclusive event Pokemon from the Pokemon Black and White 2, like Shiny Mewtwo's and Victini and all of those other things, and then managed to trade those on the GTS for the legendaries that I was missing. So I found the loophole, I figured it out. It was a pain in the bum. And it's a shame, really, that there were no easy ways to get the Pokemon that you were missing. Like, no matter how hard I tried, there was nothing I could have done to get a Mew other than just begging to people. So I was really grateful that you helped me out with so many Pokemon.
I
was really grateful
forgot about Pokemon Black 2.
Yeah, I was so grateful for Black 2 because it gave me not just Pokemon that I was missing, but also a chance to actually trade for the Pokemon I really needed.
I mean, you did pay me back by going to Smith's Toys and get me a code. So I can't remember what Pokemon it was, but
was it Zeraora?
It might have been.
It might have been Zeraora. But yeah, that was a saga, and I think between us, at one point, I was just like, anything you can do to help, and you were like, all right, calm down, I got some stuff. But yeah, I think my roadblock, I still had like 80 Pokemon left on my roadblock at that point, because I didn't have both versions of every game, so I was pushing
Volcanion. I had quite a few event Volcanions, so I think that was
Volcanion,
one of the easy ones. I'll chuck over to you with the Rage Candy bars.
And I think you gave me Celebi as well, if I remember rightly.
Probably, because I think I did a lot of the 20th anniversary stuff with Celebi. When that came out.
I was very, very grateful, and it was a long journey.
So satisfying at the end, though.
Oh my gosh, it was the best feeling in the world. And I was like screenshotting stuff and recording stuff, and it was fantastic. Like actually having 100% in my decks, not just in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but in Sun and Moon as well, and then also having it in Pokemon Bank. It was very, very cool. So I was really, really pleased to actually do that. Some people then took it a step. Some people take it a step further and then try and get like every form of a Pokemon. So like every form of Rotom, every different type of Pavilion. Yeah, that was too much for me. I was like, I got them. We're good.
It's an exhausting task.
Yeah, it really is. Have you got every Pavilion?
Yeah, all 20.
Wow, that's some effort.
And like, I think the one that nearly broke me was every unknown, because you had to go to Mirage Caves in Oras and find the unknowns, and like it's just RNG at that point. And dude, it was so frustrating. But I managed to get all the unknowns.
I actually think I did get every unknown as well.
I think the ones you were struggling with were like the exclamation mark and question mark ones, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the one thing that did make that slightly easier is again I had Dex Nav. So if it was something I'd seen before, I knew it was something I'd seen before, so I didn't bother encountering it. Yeah, that was the only thing that made it a little bit more bearable.
Yeah. Well, I think if we're giving people tips on how to complete their Living Dex, it's one, use the internet.
Here's some really specific tips. Number one, absolutely use the internet. Pull up information on where you can find Pokemon. Pull up information on what rarities and chances there are of encountering things. There are easy ways to do it and there are hard ways to do it. You always want to pick the easy route. The second one, and probably the most important one for me, have a tracker. So Datadex, and shout out to the guys who developed that app. It's a fantastic app. Available free on the App Store. It's got a built-in Pokemon tracker, but it also has location information and moves and everything else for every single Pokemon in the Dex. They update it all the time, so cannot recommend it enough. Grab Datadex if you need it, or use Excel or something else, but you must have a tracker. The next thing, which is, it seems ridiculous, but is so helpful, order your boxes and then number them 1 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90,
Yep.
all the way through. It makes such a difference to just put everything in order, not only because it's really satisfying to like flick through them in order at the end, but it's so easy to work out what you're missing. And especially in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, where some Pokemon don't appear in the Pokedex, you need that numbering system to help you work out what you're missing. So that's a really important step, a setup step you need to do at the beginning, and well worth the time. And the fourth thing, probably the most useful thing, is your team composition. So for the majority of captures, I was using Gallade because it had access to False Swipe, access to Hypnosis, which gives the biggest capture boost chance, Thunderwave for things that were either immune to sleep or just were really irritating. And then I had a damaging move just to kill things if I needed to. So Gallade was absolutely my MVP for capturing. Lots of people also like Smeargle, which I had as well. So again, Soak.
Takes a lot of setup though, Smeargle. That's no problem.
Yeah, well, actually, the thing that makes Smeargle setting up really easy is Generation 6, where you can have access to Smeargle bases, where people have Smeargles with specific moves that you can take. So I set the Smeargle up with Soak so that you can make Ghost types water types so that they are affected by False Swipe. Obviously, False Swipe, Spore, which is a 100% accurate sleeping move. And then I think I had a damaging move as well. So again, I think I had Aerial Ace. So just a really easy way to do chip damage, to use False Swipe to get things down to low health.
And they can't use Explosion after that.
Yeah, most importantly, Soak and Spore to guarantee that you can use False Swipe to get them down to 1 HP and guarantee that you can use Sleep with 100% accuracy. Super important for legendaries, super important for ghost types that Gallade just couldn't deal with. Between those two, they probably caught, I would say, 80% of the Pokemon that I had to go and hunt after I'd finished both games. Really, really helpful.
Cool. And shout out to Wonder Trading that came in Gen 6 and GTS that came in earlier than that. But those were big things that helped me when I was on my journey.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get really lucky on a Wonder Trade. The GTS is invaluable, specifically for version exclusives, because lots of people will trade you one version exclusive for the other one, because lots of people are in the same position as you, where they have one and need the other. But I think, Wonder Trade is a bit hit and miss. I don't think I ever used it other than maybe if I had a couple of extra eggs that I'd bred by accident and I was just going to get rid of them.
Before I was streaming, I was doing like Wonder Trade streams, just offline though, offline streams. So yeah, I used to do something every single week and give away like 1 box, 2 boxes of Pokemon.
Oh, that's nice.
That was fun.
Yeah, Wonder Trading is, I think it's nice if you can get good stuff. And obviously on Sword and Shield, I know for some people it's been very frustrating because for some of them it's broken their game, but for me it's never been that appealing. I've tried to stick to the GTS so that I know what I'm getting back, but it's a handy thing to make use of as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Living Dex journey. I cannot recommend it enough. I know it seems like a lot of work. I know it seems like it's a hard challenge. It is a hard challenge. Don't get me wrong. I was very frustrated at times, but it's incredibly rewarding. And I think above all else, it gives you, like I said, it gives you that connection with Pokemon in just a way that I had never thought I was going to care about them before.
And with that, talking about caring for things that we don't think we're ever going to have like before, weird segue, we're just going to move on. Where the Helioptile's Pokemon sleep. Just where is it, dude?
I have the biggest news ever.
Oh
I have found Pokemon Sleep.
Have you?
Yeah, what's weird though is that Pokemon aren't going with their normal distributors, so it's being distributed by Wish.com.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of Wish.com, but basically they sell anything you could want, really. And it turns out if you search Pokemon Sleep game, you find Pokemon Sleep.
So
why don't you show the people what I'm talking about?
Is this Pokemon Sleep?
This is it. This is the app icon for Pokemon Sleep. Can you believe it?
Oh my god, what?
It's someone in a Snorlax like hoodie. They call it an hoodie, don't they? A Snorlax hoodie, just sleeping. It's amazing. It's the cover for the app. And then if you scroll to the next image on Wish.com, it turns out it's not an app. So it turns out that actually Pokemon Sleep isn't an app at all. It's a Snorlax blanket that you wrap around yourself and you put the hood up and you become a Snorlax and you just fall asleep.
So that's Pokemon Sleep is what you're telling me?
Well, how can Wish.com be wrong?
I wish they weren't wrong, but something tells me they might be.
The description says, anime Pocket Monsters, animation game, 100% official.
Huh. I'm gonna let that sit with me till next week, and we'll see whether or not it's legit. But we should move on for now before Nintendo comes after us. It's time for the unknown fact of the week. What have you got for me this week?
Yeah, I thought we'd wrap this week up with a bit of a heartwarming story. So we thought we would talk about the time that Mr. Masuda himself did an interview. This story comes to us from Kotaku UK.
Yeah, by Keza McDonald. God bless her.
Yeah, thank you very much for
Kotaku UK now no longer exists, unfortunately. So I hope those people find jobs. But yeah, it's via Kotaku. Yeah, it just happened this week. Sucks.
Oh wow. Well, sorry to hear that. Good news source. But so about 5 years ago, Mr. Masuda was doing an interview. This was after the release of Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And he was asked about the inspiration for the Hoenn region. And what's really interesting is that Masuda talks about his stories as a child. And he talks about spending his childhood summers on the island of Kyushu. And said that he really wanted to bring those memories to life in the region of Hoenn. So the things that he really remembered were the abundance of nature. And so that was where the idea of like the secret bases came from, because he used to build like forts out in the wild or tree houses. And actually the word Hoenn is made up of two Japanese characters, the Ho, which means abundance, and N, which means bonds or connection. So it's about his sort of expressing his connection to nature and then a kind of natural world and this abundance of nature that he discovered in Kyushu. And you really get a sense of that going through the Hoenn region. There's so many different landscapes, and particularly like if you compare it to some of the older games, you really do go through deserts, you go on mountains, you go through grassy areas, watery areas. It really is kind of a really sort of wild and diverse landscape.
When you think about it, the two teams in that game really are talking about the environment. And
the big kind of, I guess, story behind the games is this big struggle over trying to control the natural environment. And of course, in the end, you manage to teach the teams that it's not the right thing to do, and you restore natural balance.
Rayquaza comes out and is like, what are you kids doing? All right, you're grounded, both of you.
Yeah.
Well, Groudon was grounded. Kyogre was watered? ?
Maybe he was seabedded?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That sounds inappropriate.
Yeah, that sounds good.
He was seabedded. So it's a really interesting game, and it's really easy to see the kind of connection that I'm guessing that Masuda wanted to kind of bring to life, with the wildlife and the natural aspects in the area, but also a lot of the Pokemon designs. So he really liked the insects and the wildlife that he found there. So Pokemon like Masquerain and Pokemon like Surskit are really inspired by the insects that he found.
The fact that Wurmple has two different like evolution routes as well as some pretty cool.
So all kind of these things that drew from his childhood, and I just thought a really heartwarming story to kind of share with you guys if you didn't know it before. And I think you probably can check out the full interview on Kotaku UK.
It's still there. But not on the Kotaku UK, it's just on the Kotaku main website now.
Yeah, Kotaku.com. But yeah, a really heartwarming story. And thank you, I guess, Mr. Masuda, for bringing us the Hoenn region. Yeah,
and I just want to say about the Hoenn region, like after reading that article, if you've played Ruby and Sapphire or Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, it just makes so much sense. You can tell there's a lot of love put into those games.
Best thing about Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, go.
I put 500 hours into that game, but I guess
there is a correct answer.
I guess you're probably going to say what, flying Latias?
Yeah, correct answer was flying on the back of Latias and or Latias.
That's actually one of the more unique features in the game.
Yeah, it's something that was just so unexpected, but you literally get the ability, rather than having fly, you get the ability to ride on Latias and Latios all over Hoenn. You can go supersonic speeds, you can do tricks, and the camera's free as well. So you can literally just watch around and zoom all over Hoenn. You can soar high, you can go really close to the ground, and you're exploring this 3D map of Hoenn. And it's the first time it's really kind of brought the height perspective to life, just how tall Mount Pyre is and how tall or how nice Lava Rouge Town is tucked into the side of
and how fearsome Firo are.
Yes, Firo are terrifying. But it was just a really special moment that kind of brought Generation 3 and I guess 6 as well to life for me. Was just hopping on, in my case, Latios's back and just getting to see the region in a way I'd never seen a Pokemon game before. And I wish that we would get that again with more games. I wish that we could have it in Sword and Shield. Because for me, it just brings that whole game to life for you suddenly. And you're like, oh my gosh, I was, walking down there 2 minutes ago and I can see the little Pokemon Center where, I fought this trainer or did this thing. And it was a very special moment. And the music, the soundtrack for that is phenomenal as well.
I remember it. It's actually, quite iconic.
So a really special moment. And by far and away, probably my favorite thing in possibly any of the Pokemon games visually was that moment. It's very, very special.
Yeah, well, as you said, thank you, Mr. Masuda. And let's hope he continues his great work with the next mainline game, which I expect to be revealed next year. But with that, we're going to go to the next section. This is the podcast form news roundup. Now, I was supposed to do this earlier, but this is just a quick note to say that the next 12 dubbed episodes of Pokemon Journeys is now on Netflix, so knock yourself out. That is literally it.
Yeah, I actually have the week after next on holiday, and I will be catching up on every single episode up to 24. So I won't be quite so far behind.
Have you made that jingle for our podcast about the Pokemon Journeys anime?
No, but it is on my to-do list for this week. So it will be.
Okay.
Hopefully, we can have a little. What we're going to do? Are we going to do individual episode spoiler casts, or are we going to do?
It's going to be
chunks at a time.
Yeah, it's going to be a midweek sort of. Just call between me and you. I'm not too sure whether or not I'm going to put it live or if I'm just going to do it pre-recorded, but we'll talk about it offline. But that's all I've got for this week. Have you got anything for the people, or do you want to take us out?
No, let's take us out.
Okay, so just before you just before you take us out,
do you want to take us out?
Sorry, I completely forgot because I do want to
think?
mention one thing is that I'm part of a group called Simply Sassy Vids, and I don't promote them as much as I should. So do check us out at simplysassyvids.com. I'm one of the members, Kumail. You've got fantastic people over there doing fantastic stuff. During the Please Be Excited segment of this week's episode, I did mention Pokemon Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness. Well, a good friend of mine, Braden K007, is doing some streams of that over on Twitch, so go check him out. Apart from that, happy birthday to Josh and Al, whose birthdays is going to be in a week's time, so happy birthday to you two. And take us out.
Sorry, do you want to say the name of that group once again, just for people who want to find it?
SimplySassyVids.com.
Very good. Okay, so we have been the PokeRamble Podcast. I have been the Frontier Brain Amit. You have been...
one of the other people called Kumail.
The other people.
Yeah,
I like it. And you can catch us live every week, 7:30 p.m. BST.
Should we just say 7:30-ish?
7:30-ish.
Yes.
We try to be on time.
Yeah.
7:30 p.m. BST on twitch.tv/KumailH every Sunday evening. Come hang out with us while we do the podcast. Episode 16 next week. So look forward to us back next week.
Is that
and if you can't join us live,
Sandshrew, or is it Pidgey?
It's Pidgey, I believe.
Pidgey. Okay. Awesome.
You've made me question it.
That's right. We'll find out next week. Tune into next week.
Yeah, we won't spoil it.
Yeah.
Don't look it up. But join us next week for episode 16. If you can't catch us live, do check us out on Spotify or any other good podcast service, or YouTube. Just search PokeRamble Podcast, and you can check out all of our other podcasts and a couple of very exciting trips to Pokemon Virtual Fest that we wrapped up a few weeks ago. So do check it out if you want to catch up, and hopefully we'll see you all next week.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.